Sup guys, King here bringing you some info regarding Resident Evil 9. So yesterday we had a whole bunch of previews released and our well-known leaker Dusk Golem decided to compile everything and do a breakdown. So I'm going to be reading through that breakdown because it's a lot easier to go through that than go through multitude of different articles and questions and Q&As. I already done one with the deadline interview, but this one is like a full if you will, compilation of everything that was revealed. So we're going to go through it, and again I'm going to give my thoughts on it. And yeah, there's plenty of new info here. Some of it we've already know, but more info here as well, so we can go through that and discuss that. So yeah, this is going to be a long video because it's a full-on preview, if you will. So if I get started, into like and subscribe, guys, and yeah, let's do this. Let's go through this. Here we go. Took a bit, but have finished my Resident Evil Requiem tweet thread summarizing all the previews that came out today, if want to read that. Though it does contain some spoilers of the section of Road Hill Care Center, if rather go in more blind than not. Okay. Resident Evil Requiem's preview embargo lifted. A bunch of sites got to play roughly 3 hours of the game in Road Hill Cryonic Care Center. There's spoilers for this part of the game, though Capcom did blacklist mentioning certain things. Save room theme is very RE7-esque, so I didn't hear it. I haven't heard the save room theme yet, but apparently it's very RE7-esque, and I tend to use that theme for a lot of my videos now recently, so that's kind of cool. That's good. I was curious though if they'd gotten the guy who did the music for Resident Evil 3 remake, because you know, the ending portion of Leon's part of the trailer when it ends and the title comes, I don't know, I feel like it sounded very RE3 remake like. So is it the same composers for RE7? Did they do that? Curious to know about that. So while there's spoilers for the game, there's stuff people can't mention to keep it a surprise. This info is going to be very scattered because there's a lot to go over, like a metric ton. We'll cover the most interesting things. This nurse from the trailer dies. So yeah, this nurse that everyone was sort of hyping up, like thinking that it was going to be an important character, ends up dying. I had a theory, by the way, where I was like, what if she's not dead? What if like you come back later and the corpse is gone, and then you get towards the end of the game, right, and she reveals herself and you find out that, oh no, this is Natalia, like this is freaking, do you know what I mean, like, and it's actually Alex Wesker. Because I think I did talk about this in previous videos as well, where like a lot of the main villains recently have been, you know, women or female centric, basically. You know, Evelyn slash the old lady, Mother Miranda, and there's always sort of like a twist, something that at the beginning that relates to the big reveal later on in the game. So I'm kind of wondering maybe like if they're pulling like the wool, because I don't know, I'm looking at this character model and all I'm thinking is like, this looks like an older Natalia, right? But it's probably not. Like, it's probably not. But then who's the big bad of this game then? Surely it can't just be Gideon, right? Like, because he feels like he's the end boss of the care center, and then there's going to be someone else at the Raccoon City stuff. Do you know what I mean? So who's that going to be? Very curious. Very curious if we're going to get a twist here or not with this. A really good example of a piece of info Capcom blacklisted from previewers sharing is the identity of the woman Leon talks to over comms is revealed, but previewers say they can't reveal who due to NDA. Leon was planned... Okay, so first off, at this point I think it is Sherry Birkin, because if this game's going back to Raccoon City as well, it makes sense for Sherry to be the one to come back, right? I just feel like it would bring it all together with that, with her character as well, because like Leon's going through his thing, and then you got Sherry trying to help him through it, and her sort of like getting these moments of flashbacks as well over the comms where actually he's helping Leon navigate Raccoon City. So I just feel like it would make sense for it to be her. I don't think it would be Ashley. I wouldn't mind it, but I think it just makes more sense thematic and story-wise for it to be Sherry. Leon was planned as a main character in RE9 since the beginning. Leon's return and Grace's surprise. For us, the story of this Requiem may have begun with Grace, but it seems the team planned Leon's appearance as almost the sole protagonist from the start. As director Koshi Nakanishi told me, in the earlier stages of the project, we had finished Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, and Ethan Winter's story had come to an end. Having strayed from the main plot for 2 games, we felt we were ready to return to the main narrative of the saga, and that meant returning to Raccoon City. So our first idea was, okay, Raccoon City. The iconic main character of those games has been Leon, so we'll bring Leon back. That was our first thought. I know a lot of people are going to get bitchy about this because it's like, well, no, actually it was Jill, but no. When we first went to Raccoon City, it was with Leon Kennedy. And then obviously RE3 came out, and it was a sort of a prequel and epilogue to RE2 specifically, with Jill going around Raccoon City and that. But you got to keep in mind that for the all the horrors that Jill first experienced came from the Spencer Mansion. Raccoon City was just like a second story or attempt at escape from there for her. Do you know what I mean? And you also got to keep in mind she was trying to escape the city in the first place. She wasn't trying to save it. Something, they added in with Resident Evil 3 Remake is the whole, like, she tries to save it at the end when she thinks she has the chance to do that. And that's great. It's great they did that. But overall, her character was trying to leave Raccoon City and just leave all those people to die. Was with Leon, he gets to Raccoon City and he wants to help. He wants to try and help some of these people, and he can't. And in the end, it's like, okay, I need to escape and deal with this. We deal with what Umbrella has done, and he's been fighting that fight for years. So it makes a lot of sense. It would be tied specifically to Leon's character and his development more so than Jill, because she already sort of went through a opening of horror with the Spencer Mansion. Like, the Raccoon City incident was just another day for her, if you will. Like, so yeah, it just makes more sense to me, at least thematic wise, why it's Leon. That said, I do want Jill to come back in this in some shape or form. So it would make sense to have some sort of cameo, or maybe even an explanation as to why Jill wouldn't want to like deal with this. But then it kind of makes sense why they wouldn't want to deal with it. Like, it happened, they moved on. With Leon, he hasn't moved on. He hasn't dealt with it properly, if that makes sense. And I guess this game is its way of Leon confronting that. The section previewers played in Road Hill Cryonic Center had 2 Leon sections and 1 Grey section, but the Grey section was a lot longer than the Leon section and made up over half the runtime. So approximately 2 hours as Leon, 1 hour as Leon, roughly. So yeah, we know that it's the preview that people played. It started with Leon first, a few minutes long. Then it was like a proper 2 hours with Grace, hour and a half, and then the last part was with Leon. So yeah. Requiem is not an open world game. It's built in a linear fashion with some backtracking. Okay, so now he's saying the other, he's been saying for a while now this is going to be an open world game, like, or at least it might be, but that said, and I will continue to insist this, it does have at least a couple pretty open levels you use a vehicle to traverse through, but those are open levels, not open world. Yeah, I think that makes a lot more sense. I think from the get-go, when people were like, oh, this is an open world, some other people said that, it's like, no, it makes more sense that this would be more similar to something like Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy and even The Last of Us 2, where you go through those, you go through certain linear levels, but then you have those levels that are really open and you get to like travel around and explore. So I'm thinking it's more like that. I think even, yeah, IGN, I think this is an IGN post, I'm not too sure. Resident Evil Requiem is an open world, is built on classic Resident Evil foundations. The idea was basically to evolve the gameplay. So recent Resident Evil games have experimented with giving players more freedom, and while they weren't technically open world games, they did offer more space to engage in both survival horror and action. Resident Evil Village is the notable example here with its interconnected hub areas, but for Resident Evil Requiem, Capcom has gone in a different direction. Speaking to GameSpot, so this is a GameSpot interview via a translator, game producer Masato Kumazawa confirmed that Resident Evil Requiem is not an open world game, but it does have a different direction that the development team considers to be the best fit for it. This direction has led to a game that's heavily inspired by 2 of the best entries in the series, Resident Evil 2 and 4, and applies the knowledge from modern day Resident Evil games to involve them. Resident Evil Requiem features 2 protagonists, Grace Ashcroft and Leon Kennedy, and their respective gameplay leans hard into classic Resident Evil survival horror and survival action. Again, it's the best of both worlds. That's what we're getting with this game. And while they're saying it is not open world, there most likely will be sort of open worldish like areas. Otherwise, why does the car exist, Unless it literally is for just cutscenes. God damn, what's the herbs, man? Leon's Tomahawk axe is confirmed to not break when its durability runs out, but it becomes very ineffective if not sharpened. Okay. There is confirmed to be special mini-boss style zombies which have unique personalities, behaviors, and quirks. 2 of them you encounter in the care center with Grace is a singer zombie who hums a lot and will screech really loud that makes Grace huddle over and cover her ears, stunned if disturbed. And the chef zombie who launches around, does a lot of damage, and very easily irritable and will chase you around for a while, and isn't very easy to take down. Plus, the chef can move dynamically, pop up when disturbed in huge mobs to become a problem. You'll also find the zombies and enemies have physics and interactivity with each other and the environments. One small example of that you can see here. We see when we switch character perspectives, we're given a kind of, okay, so yeah, if you look at the image, they're sort of huddling against each other. So yeah, this does confirm what I asked a few months ago or weeks ago when they were talking about zombies having unique personalities, and whether or not some of these zombies would be tougher enemies to defeat and have different purposes in that. And they pretty much confirmed it here that yes, there are zombies with different traits and that, and different personalities and that, and difficulty. So yeah, like the chef zombie would be considered sort of like a mini boss zombie, I guess, that is hard to take down. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of cool for them to confirm that, and it's kind of cool to see that yes, there is individual differences with these zombies going into this game. So it's not like just your typical zombie you fight and you take down. At least with Grace anyway, it feels like. With Leon, obviously he's a powerhouse. He's just going to go through these and wipe the floor. But with Grace, it's going to be more of a challenge. We see when we switch character perspectives, we're given kind of a timeline thing. Also setting the Road Hill stuff on the night of October 8th, 2026. We see the full encounter with Leon and Grace after the Big Mama demo and see a few things. First, we of course see Leon shoots Big Mama's brains out, and I see a lot of people take that as meaning that the Big Mama's dead. All I'm going to say to that is we've seen this exact sort of thing before. Example in the next tweet. We do see Victor Gideon does indeed have night vision goggles, and his Buffalo Bill isms continue to pile up. So yeah, I've been saying this for a while now that clearly Victor Gideon is inspired by Buffalo Bill. So yeah, that's pretty much in there, the night vision goggles and that, etc, and the stalkerish attitude. But what is his main goal? Is he trying to cure the virus? Is he trying to cure himself, I guess? Or is he trying to change himself, involve himself? What's going on? Leon hands down the Requiem over... Leon hands the Requiem over to Grace after Victor locks the place down. Anyway, the Big Mama thing made me think a bit of this scene from Resident Evil 7, which is a great transition to talk about full confirmation on a Crimson Head-like enemy. So he's referring to when you kill Jack Baker and you blow his brains out, but then Leon, shows up regenerated. So maybe it's the same thing with Big Mama. She regenerates and comes back. We'll have to wait and see what's going on. Which is a great transition to talk about full confirmation on a Crimson Head-like enemy officially called Blister Heads, according to the devs. Maximilia gives a great little talk on the topic here. We don't have any B-roll footage or screenshots of them. Just know of them and the zombies come back to life as them if not taken out in specific ways. The devs in an interview confirmed if you don't kill enemies in Grace's section as Grace, you can fight them as Leon later, but kill them and they won't be there for Leon later. So yeah, I was asking this in my other video whether this was a case, if this was sort of like a zapping system where if you don't take them out, they will appear in Leon's portion of the campaign later on. And yes, this confirms it. So that's actually really cool to hear. So now you sort of have this element of gameplay where it's like, do you take out these zombies and make it easier for Leon to traverse through this area, or do you just take out the base ones and then hope they don't regenerate as blister heads in Grace's campaign, and then you take them out as Leon in his campaign portion of the game? Like, so that's really cool to get that. But it also makes me wonder what other elements or of zapping system they're gonna have in this. Like, will there be like items you can unlock that you don't have to pick up and Grace can pick up? For example, like after you play as Grace and you're playing as Leon through the Road Hill Center, when you break the cabinets, for example, and you open them and you got the upgrades, could you just not touch the upgrade? Could Grace, do you come back to that area later on as Grace, and could Grace pick those items up, those upgrades up, and use them for herself, perhaps, and upgrade her weapons? Or what? I mean, obviously you've got the Pacific upgrade, which is like, this is specifically for the alligator snapper or whatever, but it's probably not, maybe. So, but it makes me curious if there's other items maybe you can do that with. Like, so I'm very curious to see if they're gonna give us like an proper updated zapping system. It's not a thing I care about really, because like in the original RE2 when they introduced it, it really didn't mean much. In my honest opinion, it really didn't mean much. Yeah, like one of like 4 moments in that entire game where the zapping system was like ideal, and even then it's like it barely does anything. And then they sort of try to bring it back for Revelations 2, and again it was sort of the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, you got the zap. It's like, from what I'm seeing here, it seems that it's a bit more ideal to use and think about when doing, especially when it comes to like whether or not you want to wipe certain enemies out or not, or leave them for Leon later on. So it's like they've done a better job. So yeah, I'm curious to see how it works overall. It's confirmed zombies can pick up weapons that other zombies have dropped. Nakanishi, director of Revelations 1, RE7, RE9, says in an interview that the fear level of RE9 they didn't hold back in Grace's sections, and that there is horror stuff and scary parts in Leon's sections too, but there's also relief from horror mixed in and moments of pure action. You mentioned that some people thought Resident Evil 7 was quite scary, so you adjusted the level of fear in Resident Evil Village. What is the level of fear in this game, Resident Evil Requiem? It's true that some people couldn't play through Resident Evil 7 to the end because it was too scary, so the sense of fear was toned down a bit in Resident Evil Village. However, since Leon's part in this game is exhilarating, Grace's part is made scary without holding back. Of course, Leon's part is scary, but there are many thrilling situations that will make your heart race. Overall, it may be scarier than Resident Evil Village. However, what makes Resident Evil Requiem unique is that it doesn't keep you on the edge of your seat with suffocating fear, but rather has a well-balanced structure. So yeah, he says he thinks it's scarier than Village, but not as consistently horror as RE7 as an example, but they didn't hold back in being scary for Grace and parts of Leon's campaign, just balancing it out also with thrilling moments and reliving sections. So I do think that with Grace, for example, as you reach the end of the game, I think she is going to become like a powerhouse, which is consistent with every Resident Evil game. You know, you start off weak and then you get stronger as you go throughout the game. And then with Leon, I don't think it's just going to be pure action. I do think like, oh yeah, he is going to like have these horror moments as well. It's not just going to be full on action. I think most of it obviously will be action, but there will be some horror sprinkled in Leon's campaign. And with Grace, I see the action stuff sprinkled in towards the very end. So balance. An interesting tad bit is that not only do enemies one doesn't kill pops up for the other, but dropped items as well. They also say it's very difficult for Grace to take out every enemy. In a way, having Leon able to come later and clear house means they could lean harder into survival horror. Okay, so if you don't pick up certain other items, Grace can pick them up. Okay, so that sort of confirms something like that. Okay, do the actions you take in each part affect the parts of the different protagonists? For example, if the setting changes from Grace's part to Leon's part and the location is the same, the enemies that Grace defeated first will also be considered defeated in Leon's part. The same goes for dropped items. However, it's difficult to wipe out all enemies with Grace, who has limited ammunition. As I mentioned earlier, I think the fact that you can use Leon to defeat enemies that fled in Grace's part is one of the fun aspects of this game, so very curious about that. Item conservation for Grace and choice where you pick your battles and when to avoid enemies. Director also says it'll be really interesting to see people replay the game and figure out speedruns due to stuff like this. It'll be very different to past RE games with route planning. Okay, so yeah, that definitely does make it interesting, because again, it becomes a question of choice. Do you defeat these enemies? Do you speed run and pass them? And then when you play this Leon, do you just go through them, or do you speed run as well? Very curious to see how the speed run in this game is going to work, and I'm curious if there's going to be trophies of this where it's like, don't kill any enemies as Grace or something, just sneak past them like and then kill all enemies with Leon or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, very curious to see how this is going to work. An interesting thing is, while we saw an antique coin in Leon's part in the RE showcase, apparently only Grace can pick them up, but you can spot where they are as Leon. Okay. We do see Leon's inventory has a currency, which I thought might be coins, but that's of note for sure. So that's of note. Okay. I was able to pick up antique coins in Grace's part, but I couldn't pick them up in Leon's part because I felt like I didn't need them. Is the strengthening that can be done by collecting antique coins limited to Grace? Only Grace can be strengthened with the antique coins from the sanitarium, so they cannot be picked up by Leon. Leon also has the usual growth elements from the series, such as weapon strengthening and modifications. The part you played this time was mainly a part where Leon could go on a rampage, but as you progress through the game, you will encounter situations where even such a strong Leon will be forced to struggle. For this reason, it is important to strengthen Leon as well. So what I'm getting from this is that Leon is going to be able to upgrade his weapons, and Grace will be able to upgrade herself with the antique coins. Like, I'm curious though if like RE7, you'll be able to find like hidden upgrades and use those to upgrade your weapons, or not perhaps. And this is just specifically tied to Leon and his inventory system. Again, very curious to see how this works. It is confirmed, like RE4 Remake, there is specific attacks you can avoid by crouching at the right moment. Nakanishi says they wanted to make many chainsaws in RE9, and how they're used by enemies is different, like some enemies will pick up and throw the chainsaw at you. We see Grace could get a B934 handgun from the dining room. A fun way some describe sneaking past enemies as Grace are some are very puzzle-ish, doing their past life jobs with context clues of how to get by. Does remind me of things like Siren or Little Nightmare, but I thought as a good thing since I like that sort of stuff in horror games, and fun brought into the Resident Evil formula where you can also just go into a room and fight if you want. There's a lot of praise for Road Hill Chronic Care Center in the previews for great level design and how you go back to unlock new things. Some previewers even saying it's some of the best level design in the franchise, others saying that thankfully not as linear as Demetrius Castle in RE8 was, etc. Direct quotes on those two statements. Okay. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of previews say that, so I guess that's true. I guess this is going to be a very fun section to play through. I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's going to be, maybe it'll be fun to do like a future video and talk about the best areas in Resident Evil games and that, so that would be kind of cool, like the best and the worst. I think that would be kind of cool thing to do in the future. Also comment how RE9 is very funny. Sometimes there's some laugh out loud moments and absurd stuff they can't spoil, but very dark comedy at times. Grace can use defense items like knives, though don't think that's too surprising. Yeah, I think we saw that in some of the previews. You can see that in the picture. We have it 100% confirmed again that Leon is indeed infected with a virus. So yeah, to get a bit into some of the intentional goofiness of RE9's dark comedy, something that apparently can happen is a zombie gripping a chainsaw can fall onto the ground, and the chainsaw still revved up will snake them along with the ground carrying the zombie's corpse flopping around. Okay, so yeah, we did see that in the preview. The chainsaw can spin around, but it taking the zombies with it. That's kind of cool. That's a cool animation to add in. And get in the way of the dead zombie snaking around with the chainsaw carrying them around until it powers off. It'll damage you, but you also will damage and cut off the legs of other zombies in the way. Stuff like that. There's some ridiculous dynamic things that can happen. Okay. It's confirmed you can't get upgrade vials through antique coins to upgrade things like max health. Oh, it's confirmed you can get upgrade vials for antique coins to upgrade things like max health, steadier aiming, better damage, etc. Also, with antique coins, can get a hip pouch for inventory slots. Apparently, Victor... Okay, so that confirms that, because we were wondering, like, what can you specifically upgrade? So it's nice to have confirmation on that. Apparently, Victor Gideon has a forked snake tongue. Yeah. His chances of turning into a snake monster really are just increasing. Yeah, I've noticed that, the ring as well. So, yeah, definitely a lot of snake motif going on here. Like... I'll be very disappointed if he doesn't turn into some sort of giant snake, or even like a hydra or something. That would be kind of cool, maybe. Victor, upon also seeing Leon for the first time, comments they both have the Umbrella Curse. So take that for what you will. So this probably ties in with what the German commenter said about this other German content creator, saying that there is like a conversation apparently with Leon and Gideon where we learn about some stuff, and this relates to the Umbrella Curse and to the virus that Leon has, and Gideon being related to the Raccoon City incident specifically, and that they probably got it from there. So, and now Gideon's trying to cure it using Grace's blood and that. So, yeah, very interesting if this is true. But it makes me question, like, does this mean that all the people that worked at the Rhodes Hill Center were from Raccoon City and they got infected? Or what? What happened? Why did the virus release in the first place? Why would Gideon release it in the first place? Do you know what I mean? Like, if it was him that did it, why? So, what is going on? Like, what is going on? The mystery of this is building up. And that's one of the cool things about Resident Evil is the mystery. So, I'm loving the fact that there is this core mystery that we're not really sure about. And it's going to be interesting to play this and go through and discover that. Some examples of unique zombie behavior is like the cook zombie going from different stations to prep food, going next when he changes stations. Or an area, anytime you turn on the light, a zombie will complain it's too bright and go to turn the lights off, as two examples. Director also confirms they made about 100 unique zombie personalities. put a lot of care to have variant zombies, zombie looks, and personalities, a lot more than past entries. Okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think we discussed that. So there's 100 varieties of these. So very curious to keep an eye on this and see how different each of these zombies will interact. Some people notice Grace has a melee option. It's not what people assume. Grace can shove zombies away to give us some space. The melees don't actually damage zombies. Ooh, okay, so I guess it's sort of like Ethan's block button, I guess, maybe. It also seemed like zombies were carrying on the habits of their former selves. There was a zombie that turned off the lights while saying, "Let's turn off the lights." So does that mean that each zombie's movements and reactions were carefully crafted? Nakanishi. Of course, one of the ideas was that it would be fun to give each zombie a unique personality. However, there is a limit to the amount of information a player can understand. So in the end, we decided to create a game experience where it's hard to understand at first, but as you play, you'll understand the characteristics and be able to take countermeasures. That said, all of the development staff worked passionately on giving each zombie their own unique personality, and even regular zombies have their own voices and other things. I think there are about 100 of them in total. That's really impressive work, and goes to showcase how different this is from other entries in the series and how much work they've put into this. And again, it makes me wonder if they're going to bring this sort of uniqueness to zombies with the next remakes that we are getting. So very excited, very exciting stuff to hear and read about. Apparently there were more zombie personalities at one point in Dev, but it became too chaotic and hard to read, so they limited for better gameplay feel. Some zombies will fight each other, like one zombie personality hates loud noise near the loud singing zombie. During gameplay, zombies would sometimes fight each other. There were various types of zombies, such as those that were sensitive to sound or singing zombies, but was there any way to coordinate the movements of each zombie? Nakanishi. The developers, sorry for my speaking sometimes, I know it's a bit off. The developers called this synergy. We tried to incorporate as many of these elements as possible. However, there were cases where it became too chaotic, so we have toned it down to a certain extent. So Leonard singing zombies would fight amongst themselves, an example. Apparently, working on the zombie AI, it took a lot of adjustment. They have a lot of dynamic elements, like responding to sound, and also had to fine-tune it to have a healthy level of horror and humor. Were there any challenges you faced with the characteristics of these zombies, or any characteristics that you would like players to pay a particular attention to? Sorry about that, I was interrupted. Phone call. That's lovely. Okay. Would fight amongst themselves. Apparently working on the zombie AI took a lot of adjustment. They have a lot of dynamic elements like responding to sound, and also had to fine-tune it to have a healthy level of horror and humor. Didn't want things to become too silly, as that take away from the creepiness of the zombies. Took a lot of work and trial and error to get to the end result they're happy with. Okay, so were there any challenges you faced with the characteristics of these zombies, or any characteristics that you would like players to pay particular attention to? Nakanishi. The adjustments took a very long time. One of the challenges was the number of times things happened that developers hadn't anticipated. The zombie AI itself was set to react to sounds, so it would react in unexpected ways, like they didn't even react to sounds like that. It was fun to create these parts, but some adjustments were necessary. Another issue was that while the basic purpose of making it scary was to give the zombies distinctive features, they inevitably became humorous. Of course, there's a fine line between laughter and fear, so we were prepared for that, but the adjustments were more difficult than expected, and there were parts where even a slight change in the way the lines were delivered could suddenly make it seem like a joke. We carefully adjusted these aspects from various angles, including appearance, movement, and voice. So it's kind of nice to know that they're trying to add a bit of dark comedy and humor into this. It's like, to be honest, I'm not a big fan of the campy humor, because, you know, the only reason I liked it in the first place was because of the voice acting and that, but like, I prefer when these games take themselves a bit more seriously. But, you know, humor like this, I think, isn't too bad. That's kind of fun, but curious to see how it's going to turn out. Curious to see that. On RE9's Leon, he's around 50. He's been fighting bioterror for roughly 30 years, and fatigue is starting to take effect. Along with that, despite everything, there's no sign to the darkness of bioterror coming to an end, and every incident has had tragedy and losses that are waiting on Leon. Nakanishi says Leon is struggling with an emptiness growing inside of him, feeling of pointlessness in what he's doing, as the same things and horrors just keep happening over and over again with nothing getting better, just a constant offense. Okay. Seasoned warrior Leon has fought in many different situations beyond the events depicted in the main game. While Leon himself has reached his own ending in each game, I believe there were sacrifices and many tragic events along the way. Leon has been fighting for nearly 30 years since he was in his early 20s, but the world has not yet become peaceful. I felt there was a sense of emptiness, a sense of fatigue, wondering is there any point in continuing to fight. To express this, I chose the axe as a weapon to symbolize Leon's strength, his ability to fight with confidence even in the face of danger, and the weight he carries. The fact that there are a lot of splatter scenes in Leon's parts is one way of expressing the hard-hitting impression of Leon, so I'd be happy if that came across. So yeah, Leon definitely, when you look at his moveset and his aggressiveness when he's fighting, it definitely comes to a point of like, he's just done, he's tired, he's exhausted, it's just the same thing over and over again. And yeah, fatigue, like, it looks like a lot of people are complaining about the part where the nurse gets killed, because you can sort of see Leon just standing there, not reacting at all, not even reaching for his gun to protect her. Honestly, I see it. Honestly, that scene sort of reminded me from the scene from Skyfall, where Bond is doing the Russian roulette gun thing, differently with Silver, and he's like, you know, you got one bullet, shoot the glass of the lady's head, and Bond misses, and then Silver ends up just point blank shooting her dead anyway, and the glass falls, and he's like, I win. And then Bond just sort of sits there, nothing, like he doesn't say anything, like he makes a joke, he makes a pawn, and then he just goes crazy and kills everyone and captures Silver. There's no like any feeling of like annoyance or loss at him having gotten her killed or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and a lot of people did not like that scene, and yeah, I sort of was annoyed by that as well. It's like, why are you making a quib in that moment? Like, I get it, maybe it is related to Bond and that, but like sort of, but it's sort of the same thing here with Leon though, where like, you know, you just seen a woman get murdered in front of him and he's making a joke. But then I don't know, I mean, if you guys remember Resident Evil Damnation, he was supposed to meet with his contact, right? And he meets with his contact who's just been like sliced apart by lickers, and he's making a joke, right? Like, this dude is dying in front of him and he's making a joke, and the next minute he gets killed by a licker, and Leon's trying to defend himself. So I don't know, I feel like it fits his personality. Like he does come across as like, in terms of like, man, I'm done. Like I've gone through this several times. I just don't care. Like it is kind of annoying that Leon didn't defend the nurse though. Like, did he not see the chainsaw? Was it a last minute thing? Did he not realize what was going on? Or maybe it's just a case of like, he just doesn't give a shit anymore. Like, I don't know. It was a bit weird and off-putting, but at the same time, I don't know. Okay, on game length, apparently the devs say playstyle will affect this a lot, but they suspect Grace's stuff is roughly 9 to 15 hours, and Leon's stuff is 8 to 14 hours. Estimating while the range can vary a lot on a lot of factors, most should roughly take about 15 to 28 hours depending on playstyle, how much you explore, do optional things, if good at puzzles, your gameplay style with the options given to you, etc, etc. So wow, this might be one of the longest Resident Evil games then. It could range from 15 to 28 hours. That's really, really good actually. Like yeah, that's really good. Like, if they managed to find a good balance between Grace and Leon's sections and that it's that long. That's crazy. That's actually really crazy to get that estimation now. So very looking forward to playing this now. Yeah, like, continuing on the Victor Gideon is going to turn into a snake monster theory. He has a snake ring he wears on his thumb. Yeah, we noticed that already. Nakanishi says though, so far we've mainly seen human types of monsters. This is still the early parts of the game. When people have played RE9, he says many other non-human creatures will appear, and creatures that truly embrace being a biohazard. Just want to keep them a surprise. Also, may low-key confirm the giant baby monster we see are just a type of creature and multiple of them, which we do get a B-roll footage of. Okay, so tell us about the creatures. In the demo, the creatures that look like giant babies were impressive. Please tell us about the theme of the creatures in this game and the points you kept in mind when creating them. Nakanishi. The creatures that appear in this game are derived from viruses and are based on the mutations of those viruses. In particular, in the early part of the game that you played, there are many human-based creatures, but of course, as you play through the whole game, many other creatures will appear. Our aim is to create creatures that are truly biohazard. So, it does feel like the Rhodes Hill Civic Center will be very focused on humanoid type of enemies. And I'm assuming that once you get to Raccoon City, that's where you will encounter the big extreme mutations. And I'm assuming key returning enemies, in this case, lickers maybe. I'm really hoping we get like a new form of liquor, and I'm hoping we get other returning enemies as well, because it is Raccoon City, so it would be cool to get like an expansion on the Drain demos and maybe the G variant as well, so that would be kind of cool. Very curious to see what kind of biohazard like enemies we're gonna get. Like, very curious. Maybe even hunters even, but then hunters were in Raccoons. Well, technically they were in the labs in Raccoon City in Outbreak. They didn't appear. No, they did. They were in the other Umbrella facility as well. So yeah, it could happen. It could happen. It could happen. You also got to keep in mind, if they're going with the canon of RA3 remake, right? There were various tyrants in the underground lab in Nest. So could those things have survived? What is it? Which we do get Bill for the world of Leon facing his first big baby, which is played out like a sort of boss battle and starts off Leon's second gameplay section in Road Hill. Looks pretty fun. Nakanishi is coy about what returning enemies there are, but says he hopes people look forward to it. He also confirms, though it was obvious if paying attention, this location isn't in Raccoon City. It's a sanatorium in Road Hill. After this setting, the next setting is Raccoon City, but they haven't shown it yet. So early game progression is Renwood, Road Hill, and in Raccoon City. So, okay, let's discuss this. This is very key important. So I think this is how the structure of the game is going to work. We've got the flashback with Grace and Alyssa. That's probably how the game is going to start. And that's the Renwood Hotel. And then we go to the present timeline, and that takes place, keep in mind, that takes place in 2018. So then we go to 2026, and it's Grace at the FBI, etc., and she gets sent back to the hotel, which is located in Renwood, which is a town or city. She's going to go there, and we're going to go back to the remains of the Renwood Hotel. Present day Renwood Hotel. Grace gets kidnapped. Okay. The game's then going to cut to Leon, and he's going to come to Renwood, to the town and city, investigating the missing police officer that was stationed there. And then there's going to be some sort of outbreak or infection going on, and Leon's going to go crazy there, and he's going to get the axe and that, etc., etc., and he's going to get the info that's going to lead him to the Road Hill Center. And then we're going to cut back to playing as Grace, escaping from Big Mama. And then we're going to cut to Leon's portion of the game that now we're seeing the previews, where he enters the Road Hill Center, where he interacts with the nurse, where the outbreak starts, and he's going crazy and wiping the floor of everyone, and he's going to save Grace, and he's going to give her the Requiem. And then we're going to cut to playing as Grace throughout this Road Hill Center and the early portion of it, before cutting back to Leon and playing his side of the game. And then I'm assuming it's going to be a cut and back again to Grace again, this, escaping from Gideon. And then obviously I'm assuming back to Leon again, and then eventually they're going to escape the Rhodes Hill Center, and it's going to lead to Raccoon City. And I think as we explore Raccoon City, we're going to get a flashback to Leon's stuff in 2018 that's going to show how this infection first started, how he properly, if you played the preview section, we do get confirmation the Requiem gun is DSO issued. So now we know that this is a weapon that wasn't actually given to him by a character. This wasn't given to him by Ada. This wasn't given to him by Claire. This is a weapon that he was given, issued by the DSO. So he's already had this. But are we going to see how he got that weapon in the first place? Like how he made the engravement? Because I'm assuming the engravement, the wing and that is meant to like symbolize like the whole like, fallen comrades and that. So I'm curious about that element. Like it's a cutscene and he gets it. And it's like, yeah, this, or maybe it's something he discusses with Grace, and he's like, he commissioned to have this weapon made by the DSO, and they made it for him and they gave it to him. So maybe something like that, story related. But no, it wasn't given to him by a pre-existing character. It was given to him by the DSO. But yeah, I think that's how the gameplay structure is going to work. We get flashbacks with Leon, or a flashback with Leon in 2016 that's going to explore that stuff, like the loss of comrades, the start of the infection. and then back to Raccoon City being the last thing that we play, like this one big massive section similar to Road Hill, maybe even longer perhaps. And obviously there's going to probably be multiple areas, but we're going to go back to the RPD station. We'll probably explore other areas from Raccoon City, and then the main final area, which will be the lab that is probably located underground of Raccoon City. So yeah, I think that's how the progression is going to work. Very curious how this is all going to come together. They don't say precisely what it is, but they do say there's something you unlock after you beat the main story to allow you to play for a long time, even after you finish the main game, but keeping it a secret for now. So I'm curious what this, we don't have any footage or screams of this. I see, this may be a bit of a premature question, but are there any elements like endgame content, Nakanishi? The Biohazard series has always had elements to keep you playing after you finish the main story, and this time too. We've prepared a system that will allow you to play for a long time, even after you finish the main story. We hope you'll look forward to it. So, keep in mind, right, the Not a Hero DLC was meant to be, from what I understand, part of the main game, but it just wasn't completed in time. And they ended up releasing it as a free DLC. So I'm wondering if we are going to have some sort of different character DLC, like similar to that we get to unlock and play post RE9. I'm wondering if they learned their lesson and they were able to sit down and actually create this post-game content and finish it on time so that it will be part of the main game when you get it. Sort of similar to like Ada's separate ways that you unlock in the original PS2 version of RE4, or Ada's campaign that, you know, originally you had to unlock by playing the first 3 campaigns in the original RE6 when it was released. So maybe we get something like that. I'm hoping that we get something like that. And then obviously we get DLC story afterwards that they will work on, that will be released throughout the year maybe. So like some like bonus stuff like that. But in terms of main post-game content, I'm hoping it's at least one story DLC and maybe a new Mercenaries mode. I would love a new Mercenaries mode. I would love a new Mercenaries mode that has multiple characters returning. Maybe something similar to RE5's Gold Edition where they had like different characters that were added in, like Barry, Rebecca, and Excella. So maybe they can do something like that. That would be really cool to see. Really hoping for that. Really crossing my fingers for that. Because, yeah, I do like the Mercenaries mode. But I didn't really... I never actually got around to playing the RA8 one when they added all the new characters. I didn't play the Mercenaries mode version with Demetresk and Heisenberg, for example. So it would be kind of cool to go back maybe one day and play through that and play through all the post-content properly, like, because I only played like the Shadows of Rose and that was it. But yeah, very much looking forward to this. Curious to see what that's going to be. I'm hoping it is story DLC. I'm hoping it is something similar to Not a Hero that they were able to finish up and actually put into the game at the end, and they're keeping it a surprise. Like, here's the mysterious third character that you play. Like, obviously we're going to play it as Alyssa, I'm assuming, but I'm wondering if that is actually DLC and that there is a third mysterious character that we play as that is actually part of the post game. Very curious if that's what it is, but you know, we have to wait and see. But apparently, okay, we don't have any footage or screams of this, but apparently there's a part you go outside of the care center to a parking lot where a zombie driving construction digger to fight you with. Okay, so that's interesting. So previews have said that's happening. Okay, that's very interesting. The kerosene to make zombies not come back as blister heads in RE9 is apparently the same item you use to do stealth. What? The kerosene to make zombies not come back in RE is apparently the same item you use to do stealth. Okay. A section of the car park where a mine rotted construction grader straight for a brick wall, promoting you give a slice. So you're gonna have to fight a zombie that's in a digger. Okay, very interesting. The kerosene to use to stealth takedowns of grace. Can use it on zombie corpses on the ground to prevent them from coming back. Craft them from blood you collect. Okay, yeah, we already knew that. It's noted Leon doesn't collect the blood from enemies, only Grace does. Okay. And while we haven't seen the blight heads or blister heads yet, one previewer describes them as bubbling flesh with bulging heads like rejects from the fly. Also, a sort of reconfirmation that RE9 is an open world, but has at least a couple large open levels bigger than anything else in the series to date. Okay, an interesting thing that Famitsu notes, the section of RE9 they played was edited and modified to the retail version. The developers told them the game flow will differ in some respects to the final, and some parts were cut out or changed to keep them a surprise for the final release, which I find interesting. The version available for preview play was a specifically edited version. The story and game flow are said to differ in some respects from the retail version. The game progresses in the order of Leon's part short, followed by Grace's part longer, before returning to Leon's part and concluding. So yeah, this is something I was actually asking in the previous video that I did about whether or not this has been edited, because like I did find it weird, for example, that you find a handgun, for example, right there on the ground, or the shotgun in Leon's section. So it did feel like it was edited for the preview playthrough sake. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, this does confirm that there is slight variations to this, and that maybe when we get the final game, it's going to be very different. So very curious what they're cutting out and they're not revealing. I'm assuming there is a different method to how you get the handgun or the shotgun in this game as well. Like, it's not just there on the ground for you to pick up. So yeah, very curious about that. An interesting thing Famitsu also notes is blood, scrap materials, etc. take up space in your inventory, as do keys, as was noticed in the Big Mama demo. So there is far more inventory management than recent RE engine games. Famitsu also gives the list of items you can buy with antique coins in the Road Hill section of the game with Grace. So we can buy Side Pack, increase inventory space. Stabilizer, improves gun handling and damage. Steroids, increases max health. Override manual, increases the capacity of blood that blood collection kits can carry. So yeah, you got it here, literally listed here. So that's really cool that we get a confirmation of what is what that we get. You can also you also seem to be able to craft stabilizers and steroids, but do take a bit of getting to craft them. Can also dismantle things like a shift for a scrap, which you can, for example, turn to bullets. Okay, the crafting is a much bigger part of this game. Okay, so where was I before? Had to take a break. Okay, a Greek previewer pushed the boundaries a bit on 2 points they weren't allowed to talk about, but wanted to hint at. He hints that Grace's puzzles include an FBI analyst crime investigator mechanic, which they're not allowed to talk about fully yet. So that's very interesting, because that's something Dusk, I think, mentioned was in the original Revelations 3 with Rebecca, that there was some sort of analyst investigative mode in that game, and it seems, if this is true, they've brought that into this game as well. So, and they're not talking about it. So what? And this is meant to be the final previews of the game. So I'm assuming this is something Capcom wants to keep a surprise when we get the final, when we get the actual game, we play through it and we learn and discover about this. Interesting they wouldn't just talk about it. It's also interesting they didn't spoil Raccoon City either. So again, I'm assuming that when we get that final trailer, we will get some little hints of that stuff in there. But yeah, curious that for this like final preview build, they're not really slipping the beans, unless there's more to come. Unless this isn't the final preview, and there'll be something else maybe next week or two. There is a state of play apparently on the 12th of, is it on the week of the 12th of February? So in like, I'm assuming in 2 weeks time we're getting a state of play. Will that have the final trailer for RE9? Or is it going to be a Nintendo Direct or something? Because apparently there's also a Nintendo Direct happening. So yeah, lots of questions about where we're going to get that final launch trailer. But yeah, moving on. And Capcom was super strict on hiding the identity of a returning RE character, who's not been revealed yet, who popped up in the demo they played, who does stuff in gameplay which even further enriches the gameplay mechanics. But the NDA on this character in the demo is super strict. So there's a returning RE character who does stuff in gameplay. My honest guess is it's either the child character who we know is in Road Hill, but suspiciously is not in any of the previews mentioned at all, or Leon's comms person, but I'm personally more suspicious of the child who's conveniently missing from all the previews. Yeah, because I don't see how, if it is Sherry, right, that's talking to Leon on the headset, what kind of gameplay mechanic would be in there that she can do something? Do you know what I mean? So it only makes sense that it's probably the child, but then if it is the child character, who's the child character then? There's no kid, there's no RE character that, the only one I can think of potentially is maybe it is Natalia, but then that will mean she was a child, she remained a child the whole time, she didn't age? How? Why? Is it related to the T. Phobius virus? Is it because like she got hijacked and she's stuck in that body perhaps? Or is it literally a returning Evelyn? Or maybe it is Rose. Maybe Rose does come back in this and like, but maybe she aged faster maybe. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to think. I do think it is Sherry that's talking to Leon, but then I can't think of what gameplay mechanic they could do. Maybe it's a hacking mechanic. Maybe there's a hacking mechanic with Leon's sections, and Sherry is the one like hacking through things. So maybe you need to hack something as Leon, and you do it, and then you control Sherry maybe, or she does something from her end hacking it. Maybe that's the only logical thing I can think of, because what else could it be related to the returning RE character that we haven't heard or mentioned? Interesting. This is a bit interesting. Jinx, this is a bit interesting. Resident Evil Requiem in Japan only has a Z-rated version. The reason being, they want RE9 to be expressive, shocking, and grotesque, so they decided to just not opt to make a censored version in Japan this time, as it didn't fit with the RE9 vision. That's pretty brave and bold. Well done. Are there any differences in expression depending on the version? Nakanishi, starting with Resident Evil 4 Remake, we haven't separated the version into a standard version and a Z-rated version. And Resident Evil Requiem also only has a Z rating from CERO. Also, the footage shown in the Japanese version of the Resident Evil Showcase is the same CERO Z-rated version. We wanted to express the shock and the danger that Leon faces, and we weren't making it because we wanted to make something grotesque. So that's very interesting that there's I read about this before, but I never really realized that there's like two distinct versions of these games they release, censored and non-censored. I mean, if you want it to be censored, wouldn't you just add that option into the game itself, and you can like ask like, do you want this to be censored or not? Like, why release two different versions like that? Like, that feels like a hassle and a long, more hard work, doesn't it? With a little further thinking, there's 2 points I want to say more myself. First, I am sort of noticing a theme of pus in the infection. The blister heads seem like their heads filled with pus, and those bloated big baby zombies seem to be swelling up with pus. Just a thing I'm sort of noticing. And on further thought, I do think the returning character likely is the comms character, yeah, since we also know she's in this gameplay bit, and already many theories on her, though I am still suspicious the child character is omitted from these previews. We do have confirmation from Nakanishi that what we're seeing in Road Tail with Leon and Grace is set in October 2026. So yeah, pretty much confirmed. He also rests assured people worrying it'll be like RE6, that when they play it, it plays far more like an evolved RE4. Okay. He mentions they have a huge gun fanatic on the team they let go a little wild for the first time in RE9. So there will be very detailed gun action and details the series hasn't had to this level up to now, and hope other gun fanatics will appreciate the amount of detail put into the game. So I'm hoping we get to new swords, and if we get to use chainsaws, I'm hoping at one point we get to unlock like a sword. Give me like a bonus Devil May Cry something. Like let me use Virgil's sword, man, like that katana. They say they want Leon to feel a bit off with him, like he's being almost monstrous and brutal yet cold, being absolutely covered in blood, doing things that seem a bit out of character. That players may likely what is wrong with Leon, but that's intentional for them. So yeah, maybe this explains why he didn't flinch or whatever when the nurse died. Like he does seem to be very cold in this game. And I'm curious to learn if it's to do because he's infected, and maybe it's changing his personality a bit, or maybe it's just like this, like maybe he's just reached this point in his age where it's like, I just don't care anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? Nakanishi says he thinks Leon has restless nights where he wonders, has anything really even changed in the 30 years I've been doing this? Yeah. Or thinking if he's really been doing the best thing, if he's even on the right side. And without saying too much, he says that Leon returning to Raccoon City will be a bit emotional, depicting what Leon felt, saw, and experienced there, and that was a very strong vision for him, even early in development. So yeah, this makes me wonder, like, if we are going to get like these sort of flashback moments when Leon gets to Raccoon City, but also him like wondering if he's on the right side. I do think this is the game where he's going to start questioning a lot of things and realizing that he's maybe made mistakes, and maybe he's trying to right those mistakes. Maybe, like, again, who is the real enemy here? I mean, at this point, I think it's clear. It's probably safe to say it is the government, maybe. But I'm also curious if there's other, like, because we never did find out what the big secret was that the president wanted to reveal in RE6, and we also know that was the game that introduced the family. So is the family gonna tie into this game? Are they gonna come back in some shape or form? Because remember, they had like this Ouroboros symbol, right? And then you've got Gideon with the snake symbol. And then that's not the only time we've seen the snake symbol as well. If you guys remember RE2 Remake, I think it was the locket. If you like when Claire needed the locket to open the seal to the G virus containment, it had like two snakes symbolizing on there. So it's part of that medical thing. It's like the medical snake thing. I don't know the name for it, but I'm wondering if this is all sort of tied or related together, perhaps. Nakanishi says he wants RE9 to be constantly surprising, that the game will keep introducing new things all the way to the end. So if going mostly blind, you'll hopefully be very surprised. So yeah, I like that. I like a game that has a lot of variety and that it keeps, throwing stuff at you even till the end game. So I think that's really good if they're able to keep that balance and keep giving us new stuff as we continue playing through it. It's confirmed the tomahawk sharpening is unlimited, but it does take a bit of time and vulnerability. There was a point in dev it was a limited resource to sharpen it, but as the game came into focus, it made more sense with the game's systems to make it like reloading, though you'll want to manage its sharpness, especially on high difficulties, Nakanishi warns. Gives an example of a change in dev that the butcher zombie was more talkative, but found he was creepier if he muttered and was a bit quieter than super talkative. Okay. Nakanishi sort of hints that Grace's story is focused on her mental growth in the face of horror, while Leon's story is focused on him being pushed to his limits more than ever before. Confirmed the number of zombies are finite, no infinitely spawning enemies, and if an enemy is killed by Grace or Leon, it won't appear there for the other if they return there. Okay, we already heard that. They made it intentionally very difficult to tell if a zombie is really dead or not, or if it may return. They say they want players to be unpleasant around corpses, think they're dead, but they really aren't, and instill that fear of uncertainty if a monster is truly dead or not. Leon can use his tomahawk to open cabinets and things Grace can't get items inside. Okay, wait, can't to get and things Grace can't to get items inside. Okay, so yeah, about the enemies being really dead or not. I hope this isn't like RE6 where you would go to certain areas and there's a zombie on the ground, right? And you shoot it and nothing happens and you're just wasting ammo. But then you pick up like a key item and suddenly it triggers the zombie to wake up. Like I really didn't like that in RE6, so I'm really hoping they don't have something similar here going on where it's like, oh, there's a zombie on the floor, let me hit it or whatever, and it doesn't react, and then suddenly it does when you do something. So I'm hoping it's not like that. Nakanishi says Resident Evil Requiem is made like sushi. The two halves of Grace and Leon are crucial for making RE9 what it is. There's a synergy at the heart of RE9. People may not know they want it yet, but once they try it, they'll find it's made something new and fresh. Okay, if sushi hadn't been invented yet, a fish lover would just want to eat sashimi, a raw fish. A rice lover would just want rice, Nakanishi continues. Then some guy goes, I've made this thing. It's called sushi. It's raw fish on rice. Imagine how you'd feel if you were someone who loved eating rice. Like, what are you putting raw fish on my rice for? Or if you're a sashimi person, you're like, just give me sashimi. Why are you ruining my fish with rice? We're the inventors of sushi here, the director's analogy concludes. Even if you think you want one style, the flavor of this game comes from the combination of the two styles. Okay. Weird, decent analogy, I guess. Nakanishi says he thinks the unique appeal of Resident Evil is between the satisfaction of a monster harassing you until you can eventually defeat it for good, a rhythmic balance of tension and release. He also thinks in making a horror game, you need to be a little mean to your players. Okay, what is the appeal of this game for people who have never played the series before? Nakanishi. We think that Resident Evil, or rather horror games in general, are misunderstood. There is a tendency to think of it as a game where you run away all the time. But while Resident Evil is a horror game, it is also a game where you ultimately destroy the scary creatures with physical attacks. Rather, the appeal of Resident Evil is that destruction gives you a sense of satisfaction, catharsis, and accomplishment. To enhance this, you start off bullying the enemy. You bully them, build up your hatred, direct it at them, and then defeat them. Resident Evil as a horror game gives you the satisfaction of defeating the enemy that you can't get in a normal game where you just kill enemies one after another. I think the basis of Resident Evil is the rhythmic of tension and relaxation. The part played by Grace this time is a scene with a higher level of tension. She has no bullets, but her bag is small and she can die easily, so I think she must have felt very anxious. That was a turn where he really built up his energy. On the other hand, Leon's part was structured to allow him to release his energy by defeating enemies who had been tormented by Grace. By including these two characters, we were able to create a much more dramatic contrast than usual. Okay, so I sort of get that. Again, it sort of comes back to whether you let the enemies in Grace's part live or not. Like if you avoid them, then as Leon you get to go in there and, you know, release your pent up rage and just let loose and just go to town on these enemies with Leon sections. So yeah, I get what he's going for here. He also thinks in making a horror game you need to be a little mean. Okay. He also feels how they've designed first person and third person for RE9 is an innovation in the details they put in that no other game has quite done to date, in how the animations were made for both gameplay changes to accommodate the two styles, being to switch freely between them. He recommends if you choose to replay RE9 to try the game with the opposite camera options you used the first time to spot all the differences and effect they put into it. That's pretty much what I'm going to do. My first playthrough is going to be first person with Grace and third person with Leon, and then my second playthrough will be third person with Grace and then first person with Leon to see how different it is. Nakanishi thinks Resident Evil Requiem on harder difficulty. Actually, I want to make a comparison to the first person when it comes to Leon. I imagine it will be very similar to maybe, because the closest game I can feel like that had like this very interactivity when it came to the first person would be Killzone 3. So I imagine it will be something similar to that, where you're like playing that and you get to see your hands, you get to go down on the stairs and the ladders, and obviously you see the interaction where you're like melee attacking enemies and that, like. So I imagine it was gonna be very similar to that. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. That was a very good first person game when it came out, man. I really miss playing those. And Nakanishi thinks Resident Evil Requiem on harder difficulty levels is some of the most challenge RE9 gameplay out there, and he's interested in what those who want a really challenging RE game think of the game replaying on harder difficulties. He jokes he thinks gamers will kill around 5,000 zombies a year on average, so with RE9 there was a big focus for the dev team to make zombies with a twist. They hope even people really familiar with zombie media will be very surprised at some of the things the zombies do. Nakanishi thinks the chainsaw has become iconic for Resident Evil, sort of like the Gundam for RE9. So chainsaws for everyone was an idea they had for RE9 to be different than past entries. So the opening chainsaw juggle fight with Leon in Roadtail, he hopes stands out to be a fun zazzy encounter. That was certainly a surprise. It's designed to betray the player and not let their guard down. Please tell us the scenes and situations in this game that you put the most effort in. Nakanishi: there's a ton of stuff packed into the game, but from what we've shown you today, I think the development team and I put a lot of effort into Leon's first chainsaw scene. The chainsaw in Resident Evil is like the Gundam in the Gundam series. That's why I always struggle with the question of what kind of chainsaw should this time be. This time I arrived at the idea of a chainsaw for everyone. Because we live in a social age, all the enemies use it, and so do the players. This is the direction we're heading in. With this concept decided, what the enemies do will be slightly different depending on which one they have. At first, the doctor brings it, but it moves in a standard chainsaw manner. On the other hand, the female nurse is weak, so when she swings the chainsaw, it slips out of her hand and comes flying. Okay, that's a cool detail to know, yeah. In other words, she's a character who uses projectiles. We've paid particular attention to those kinds of details, so we put a lot of effort into that scene. Cool. He also interestingly says that he can't get fully into this yet. Leon's gameplay will expand in ways they haven't shown in the second half of the game, and says later you'll be able to get Leon familiar armor to increase his defense, and later in the game he gains access to military equipment. Very interesting. So he gets access to military equipment and armor. So yeah, and we know that the second half of the game is Raccoon City. The US government is doing some shady shit there, and clearly this tells me that there's some sort of military presence. But what military presence? Is it the US government military presence? Is it the Connections presence with their military equipment? Is it Blue Umbrella? Is it the BSAA maybe? Can you imagine if the BSAA are in this and they're still bad and we're fighting against them? Like, there is some sort of twist going on here that clearly not revealed. So again, yeah, it is very interesting, because I'm very interested to know like what this military presence is going to be. Like, where does this military equipment actually come from? That's the key question now. Who does it belong to that Leon's going to get access to this stuff? Are there any physical enhancements to Leon himself? I can't go into the details yet, but Leon will be able to wear the familiar armor. His defense power will increase, and his abilities will improve by strengthening his armaments, mainly weapons and military equipment. Yeah, very, very interesting stuff going on here. Like, yeah. He also says Leon's side is an action game, but it's not all action. He says there will be exploration, scenes focused on horror, backtracking, all with Leon too. Just it's built on the foundation of RE4's remake's gameplay and an older Leon. Though he does say puzzles are mostly Grace's stuff, where Leon instead usually gets thrilling moments in their place. Nakanishi also wants to make clear he didn't set out to make RE9's narrative just like the Revelations games in their split story aspect, but yes, there did end up similarities as the game came fully into focus during development. So yeah, I think I already read this in the deadline stuff. Yeah, the end of the storytelling just as another. Yeah, I think I did read that in the deadline stuff. Nakanishi says Grace and Leon are both facing up to a lot of their own trauma in Requiem. Trauma they've both tried to neglect for years now, which comes to a head in RE9. They have to finally face up to and against. He says that's a strong core theme in Requiem. Gideon Victor says to Leon they both have the Umbrella Curse. Nakanishi says there's something that's affected people tied to what happened in Raccoon City, and that's all he can say for now. So yeah, I think this pretty much confirms what that German commenter said about the German content creator posting this stuff, that the Umbrella Curse is something that they contracted while they were at Raccoon City. So yeah, and he's trying to cure it. So that's very interesting. And it's also interesting that we're going to get this scene between Gideon and Leon and his interaction. So yeah, very curious about that. He also says it was crucial to get across. So wait, what do you say about that? Okay, there's a game that takes place while the which is connected. So this phase about the okay. He also says that it was crucial to get across how Raccoon City has affected the universe, presenting that there was a key aspect explored in RE9 and Leon and Grace's very different perspectives on it. And I've seen the little interview quote got a lot of attention from people, but when asked who the woman on the headset with Leon if it was Claire or Ada, I don't believe Leon's comments either, by the way. He laughs, knowing fans are interested, and he too is very interested in the private relationship between Leon and Ada, but can't comment on these things. But to have put a lot into Requiem fans will love. So the fact he does specifically mention Ada in the deadline interview does make me think that Ada is going to have like some sort of role in this game, at least specifically. Maybe not Claire, but Ada. I'm really hoping it is Ada that comes back in this, because again, if this is Leon's last game, like Ada and Sherry being there, but Claire also, like, very, again, like, there's a lot that they're clearly hiding in this game and how big it is. We aren't clearly shown the puzzles fully, but we do know Grace has to get 3 jewels, a security bracelet, and has puzzles involving ritualistic poems and old photographs as part of their puzzle. 3 security bracelets with 3 security clearances, 3 glass cordets to collect, and some symbol-based keys. IGN has a few of the enemy names, and outside of the blister heads we've got named, apparently the singing woman zombie is called main character due to having a main character syndrome, and this big baby enemy is named Chuck. The official name of what Grace collects blood with is also called the hemolytic injector I spaced on mentioning until now. Confirmed there's Mr. Raccoon's collectibles to shoot as well. Okay, so we got those back. Nakanishi says that some plot threads from different past RE games are going to come together here in Requiem along with new plot elements. So this is one of the most important parts of this breakdown. Nakanishi says that some plot threads from different past RE games are going to come together here in Requiem along with new plot elements. What past threads? Let's think about this. We have the Alex Wesker Natalia Corden loose end from Revelations 2. We have Chris going rogue and now going after the BSA for using man-made bioorganic weapon soldiers. We have Blue Umbrella and whether or not they're good or bad. We have the US government conspiracy, as well as the loose end with the family that's tied to that in some way, and what Adam Bradford, President Adam Bradford was going to reveal and he got killed for, and the connections as well. Like, obviously that's a big part, so I'm assuming that's going to be wrapped up. The connections are going to make the presence felt in this game, but what is there going to be other threads as well? The fact he's saying that there is going to be past threads, like he's saying multiple past threads, plot threads. He's not just saying 1 or 2. There's going to be multiple plot threads that are going to be tied up in this game, that are going to come together. Yeah, it makes me wonder what that really is. I really hope it is the connections and the Alex Wesker stuff that somehow gets brought together with the Umbrella conspiracy, because I do think like the Leon BSA stuff should be left for his own game with Joe hopefully coming back in that maybe. But yeah, moving on. Chuck, they knew they wanted to be a big enemy and settled on the visual of seeing his flesh flabs squeeze through doors as a design element when coming up with him. Leon's got a stoic brutality that's even reflected in his music, Nakanishi says, where Leon has a musical morphed of industrial sound that stays rhythmic when he's in control, but as he's pushed to the limit, progressively gets more and more out of control and discoordinate, okay? How RE9 came about was meditating over Resident Evil's legacy, what each title was going for, and retracing steps to see how they approached the genre over the years and how to explore all that in one game. I think I got most of the details that stood out to me. Impressions are overall very positive. A lot of people praise the care center as a great location that's executed most similarly to RPD police station in layout and openness. The new zombies are fun, and most find both Grace and Leon fun to play as. Preference based on personal taste. Some big fans like Max and Huber have said if RE9 retains this level of quality for the rest of it, it might be an all-timer RE game to them. But to see how it comes along in the next month. Okay, and that's the breakdown. So yeah, that's the breakdown from Dusk Golem regarding Resident Evil 9. That's basically everything we've gotten from the previews yesterday. This is going to be a pretty big video. I apologize for that, but I hope you all got your coffee and popcorn ready at hand so you could enjoy listening to this as I'm reading it. But yeah, lots of stuff we already heard about, and lots of stuff that's expanded on, that gives more clear direction of what's going on, and some new details and that. But yeah, overall very exciting, and I can't wait to get my hands on this. Like, this is going to be a long bloody 5 weeks basically going forward. Like, yeah, it's going to be a big hassle, but we're nearly there, guys. We're nearly there. We're almost there. Just gotta hold on. But anyway, I hope you liked this breakthrough. As always, remember to like and subscribe, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, I shall see you when I shall see you. Take care and